Hey everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on Ace of the Diamond, Act 2, Episodes 17, 18, and 19. So, last week, went through episodes 13 through 16, a four-parter. It was great. My Taurus empathy was like, the Taurus energy was all over the place. My boy Salamura has had enough, and I was here for it. And so, I haven't got through all the comments with the last couple of episodes, but I'm so frustrated with Furuya, in all honesty, because I like Furuya as a character. I don't hate Furuya, and I want him to succeed. I don't want Furuya to self-implode, but I'm not so mad at Furuya as the double standard that our boy Salamura has had to endure because he's not the ace. And I'm like, Salamura has saved their butts, on occasion, quite a bit, and so has Nori, and so I feel like Salamura gets the short end of the stick a lot, because he's our protagonist, because Terajima wants us to suffer, but I want him to do good, and I'm glad that Salamura isn't just, for being a sunshine character, a self-proclaimed sunshine character, I'm glad that he isn't passive. He's not just sitting there and taking it. He's like, no, I'm not going to let you guys just do this and not know that I'm frustrated about it. And I could tell at the end of the last set of episodes that Miyuki was looking back at him like, Like, Miyuki's the captain and the catcher, so I feel like he's going to need to kind of maybe have some communication with Salamura and Furuya about all of this. I'm curious to see what's going to go on with that, but we got Inashiro, y'all. Inashiro's up in the semifinals, or they're going to the finals, so yeah, it's Inashiro versus our team. Oh my god. Versus Kosei. I was like, who are they facing? Ichidai third. Yeah, Kosei. I was like, it's been a solid week. It's been a week and a half since I've watched Ace of the Diamond because I was gone for a week and I watched ahead before I left. So, man. But Kosei also wanting to become friends with Salamura. He just picked a poor time. I think Kosei comes back in the future. Him and Salamura, it'll be great. But yeah. That's where we're at. The team is watching Ichidai third playing Inashiro, the finals that could have been. At this point, I'm fully convinced that Inashiro facing Seido again is going to be like the end. If I'm going to make a prediction, because I know the manga is still ongoing, and I don't want manga spoilers, but my prediction is like the end of Miyuki's year, the end of Miyuki's third year, they're going to face Inashiro like in the finals of something, and it's going to be that rematch. The last time we see Salamura and Miyuki play together, and I'm going to be a mess. Because I am planning, I was just talking today in the Discord about it, but I am planning on reading the manga after this. And I think when I end this season, I'm going to do like a catch-up, like at the end of the last couple episodes, just do like a catch-up and tell you all my thoughts going into this. And then after this season, I think just like I'm doing with Yona of the Dawn and Seraph of the End, before we move on to the next sports anime, I want to catch up with where the manga is. And then like we do with Twittering Birds, and like we do with Real and with Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, I'll just do volume by volume afterwards as we go. And so I'm still going to look at Ace of the Diamond as we go. I'm not giving up on it. I still want to watch. I want to read and watch it till the end because it's like one of my favorite sports series now, and I want to keep up with it. So plenty more Ace of the Diamond stuff to come. But it hit me today. We're already on episode 17, and I'm like, oh, this only has 51 episodes this season, which seems like a lot, but it's going to go by really quickly. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into this set of episodes and just see what happens in this game. Is Ichidai third is Kosei going to win or Mei? Kosei versus Mei is going to be interesting. So we'll figure that all out. But we're going to start these episodes here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. What is this series? What is this season? What is any of this? These were 3 really good episodes. Oh my god, this series doesn't miss. It doesn't miss. I don't think there's been one episode I've watched of Ace of the Diamond that I've been like, oh, I could have skipped that. No, they're all good, and it just builds. It just builds upon itself, and it's to the point where you're just like, okay. So, oh my god, what I love about these 3 episodes is that they are building on the idea of several different things. One, that our third years only have 3 months left. And then the summer tournament, and then it's over. That's insanity. The fact that they only have 3 months left with Miyuki, I can't do it. No, I don't even want to think about it. I'm like, oh no. I don't want to be there yet. No. So there's that. There's that. And then it's also setting up what the second years are going to do to move into being third years. Like, what are they going to do this year to establish where they're going to be at in their final year? So you have that. And then you have the first years coming up to prove that they're going to be able to fill the shoes of the second and third years ahead of them. And so I really liked these episodes. I took lots of notes, surprising no one. So I was like, oh my God. This was just great. This was so good. And yeah, I think I had the most notes about episode 18, even though episode 17, God, that end thing with Miyuki, they just had to make him look the most beautiful. The thumbnail is going to probably be Miyuki just because of that shot of him at the end of 3 months. It's so damn good. But God, Sawamura becoming a protagonist, right? So, oh man, what I love about Sawamura in these episodes is that, yeah, he vents his frustrations and he doesn't just, he's like, no, I'm mad and I'm going to vocalize it. And that moment where Kuramochi's like, it felt like we got a kick in the pants. It's like, And the fact that they think that Sawamura, like they're all noticing Sawamura was upset with them and they're all like, we need to step up our game. That's like something an ace would spurn you on with, right? We're going to talk about Furuya and Sawamura in this, but oh my gosh. And then Asada and Yohei, the name of our blonde boy who has leg broken, who went to middle school with Toji and Kanemaru. All right. I think that's been mentioned before, but I forgot about it. But you know what else I forgot about? I forgot that Tato still had to face Inashiro. Man, I felt dumb. Like the first 5 minutes of this episode, I was like, oh yeah, Tato has to play. I feel really bad. I also feel really bad about giving Mukai such a hard time at the beginning, because by the end of the game, it's kind of like how I felt, I felt the same way about the pitcher. He had the glasses. He was the analytical one. I gave him a hard time too. Was it Gojo? Not from Jujutsu Kaisen. Was it just Go? I think it was Go. I felt bad because I think I thought that about Go when he was pitching. I didn't care for him at first. And then by the end of the match, the game that they played, I was like, oh, okay, he's fine. And I kind of had the same reaction with Mukai. I always never really cared for Mukai because he kind of came off as bratty. But he does say some things in this episode that I'm like, okay, I can see some connections with other players here. I'm on board with your character now. I appreciated Mukai a lot more after this game because he held his own against Inashiro and Mei than I did at the start of this. And then, the big anticipated battle between Inashiro and Ichidai, they didn't even let Kosei pitch. Okay. And we're going to talk about that. That's so fascinating to me because it's the final. It's so fascinating to me. Like, okay, all right. But yeah, Tato versus Inashiro. Not Kosei, not Ichidai third. I like that they started out, they're talking about the ace. They kind of debriefed the last couple episodes and talked about the whole situation with the ace and using the ace throughout the game versus starting with Sawamura. Again, I think they should have started out with Sawamura in the last game, but the past is over. We can't go back and change things. I liked that when we saw the bench of them sitting there watching the game that Miyuki was talking there with Nori. I like when the show and the series does little tiny things like showing Miyuki conversing with other players. It's really nice. We established that Tato has a good defense. That was really good to establish here. And at the top of the fourth, it was still 0-0, which I thought was pretty cool. And so then, yeah, there's the moment where Kuramochi turns he's like, hey, Sawamura, there's a seat empty down here. And Sawamura shuts him down. He's like, nope, I can see it up here. We're fine. And I was like, ooh, because that's the thing. Sawamura, as a character throughout this whole series, he's always tried to get along with his fellow teammates. Like, he's always made a point to be like, hey, guys, like, let's be friends. Like, hey, I'm your friend, Sawamura. Like, be nice to me. But when Sawamura's mad and venting, he's like, no. I was like, I'm not going to be just like, okay, friends, I'll sit down there with y'all and act like nothing's wrong. He's like, no, something was the matter, and I'm mad and I'm frustrated about it. What's sad is that Kuramochi thinks that Sawamura was mad at them. And I don't think he was. I think Sawamura was mad about the whole pitching situation and the fact that he couldn't go in and pitch when he felt like he needed to. He wasn't mad at Kuromochi and the other batters, but just the pressure that Kuromochi is put by Sawamura in that moment, being like, is he mad at us? And the fact that they care. That's the big thing. Like, the fact that they care what Sawamura thinks about them. I'm like, awesome. Like, that, just to get that confirmation, because it's never vocalized really in the show. You see everybody be happy with Sawamura and be like, oh, you're being reliable, like, great. But to know the influence that Sawamura does have on them as a team is crazy. And it, again, ties to him possibly, rising up and becoming an ace, is that they care that Sawamura is frustrated with them. It's like, okay. And that is a big difference, because I like Furuya as a character. I said that at the beginning of this reaction. I like him as a character. I don't hate Furuya at all. But as a character in this series, Furuya oftentimes, he just kind of gets trapped in his own head. And Furuya's like, I've got to be better, and once I'm better, the team will be better, and I can be someone the team can rely upon. But I don't think, and, this could change as the season goes on, but at this point, I can't see Kuromochi having a moment about Sawamura with Furuya. Like, when he laments to Miyuki that he's like, I felt bad because it felt like Sawamura was mad at us, and I felt like I got a kick in the pants and I had to make myself better. Like, I don't know if Kuromochi would have that moment with Furuya where he would think Furuya was mad at him and venting out, because that's just not Furuya. Furuya is always very introverted and quiet, and he's just like, And I like when Furuya gave that motivational speech in the last season. Like, that was great. But I just can't, I think when Furuya vents his anger, it all comes off as self-loathing and on himself. Whereas when Sawamura vents his frustration, he's such a ray of sunshine that, like, the sunbeams come off of him and hit everybody else, and they're like, oh, whoa, is he mad at us too? Like, I just don't feel like Furuya projects that anger on others like Sawamura does, even if it's not really anger upon them. Like, Sawamura was not really mad at Kuromochi for not scoring, but that pressure came off of him, right? And it affected Kuromochi. And I just can't see that pressure coming off Furuya in the same way. I just can't see it at this point. But that's interesting. They still mad. And I'm like, good for you, Sawamura. Vent your frustration. And by the 5th inning, it was still 0-0, establishing that these were just very different teams with very different styles. And it was just like immovable object meets unstoppable force sort of situation. But then that crack, once that crack appears, and this is kind of where I really started to appreciate Mukai, is when the crack did appear and Carlos helped get that 3-run lead on them, that's when Mukai started really showing that, okay, you are a true ace, and I really love this. I also love Tadano when he scores the run and May's like, good job. Like, I'm like, oh! Like, May and Tadano's trust in one another, and the fact that May acknowledges him, that's the thing. With May's such a diva that when he gives genuine praise, it's really noticeable, right? He's such a diva, and he rarely offers praise, that when he does, it's genuine. And that's so sad, because Sawamura doesn't think Miyuki acknowledges him, because Miyuki's such a troll all the time, and Miyuki puts on a facade so much that when he does give praise to Sawamura thinks it's not genuine. He doesn't think that he's really acknowledged him, and I'm like, ugh, like, the angst in my heart. Like, I just, like, there was a lot of Sawamura Miyuki moments in these episodes. Not that I'm complaining, but I was just like, oh, my heart. Like, oh, Sawamura, I'm just waiting for the day that, because when we get that monologue with Miyuki, we'll talk about it. Miyuki wants him to become the ace, and it's like, I just, you know. But yeah, Mukai, the moment that they start winning, he doesn't cave. He still pitches through the best that he can. And I thought that was so cool, that he doesn't let himself give in the pressure. He still pitched well. Like, it showed a contrast to Furuya. When Furuya started to feel the pressure, he started throwing more balls. When Sawamura has felt the pressure before, he's emotionally collapsed as well. But Mukai, he pitched the best he could. And I like that they said he trusted his offense, that they could get the job done. And they tried, and they got close. They got 3-1, but I like that, though. It reminds me of Sawamura in the last couple of episodes in my role, because Mukai, he goes on that spiel about how he's trained his body, how he's like, people told me how to do things, and I was like, no, they think I'm a brat, but he's like, I'm just really determined. Like, I like that Mukai defends himself, and he's like, no, I'm going to be true to myself and pitch like an ace to the best of my ability. And that sounded so much like Sawamura in the last couple episodes that now I'm like, well, damn it, I'm going to put my foot in my mouth, because Mukai actually had a really cool moment. And then Inoue's home run. Inoue getting a home run off of Mei. Oh, I was like, my 40-year-old trapped in an 18-year-old body. My dude. Oh, my God. And I love that... I love that Itsuki tries to like make a joke. He's like, Mei, calm down. Let me tell you about the story about the witch. And Mei's like, I'm over it. No, not gonna work. He tries to tell a joke, but Mei is mad. When Mei does get mad, it's very, very noticeable. Like even up in the stands, Seido can notice, right? And then I really like the animation on Mukai. I'm looking at my notes, but when they animate Mukai throwing like the sliders, it's very much like Nori. His pitching style is a lot like Nori's, and I thought that was really cool, and that was pretty neat. But then yeah, Itsuki and Mei having that conversation there at the end, and Furuya and Sawamura watching him, like watching Mei. I like that both Furuya and Sawamura watching Mei and Mukai and getting inspiration from them as pitchers. I loved that. And Mei and Mukai don't get along. I was like, if there's any pitchers in the series whose personalities butt heads, it's Mei and Mukai, because they're too similar. They're far too similar, and they're just like, man, it was like a cat fight, and Inoue's like pulling him back, and Itsuki's like, don't fight him, and he's like, I was like, next time, what are you, 12? I'll give you hell next time. I wasn't even pitching to my full strength. I love it. Mei and Mukai not getting along is like surprising no one. Right? It's so good. So then they say that Miyuki and Nabe are going to come back and watch the final, and they want Furuya to come too and see the pitching and see that happening. But Sawamura is like, no, I'm going to watch the tapes. I'm going to keep practicing. He's like, I got to move forward. It's like, I'm not going to spend another day sitting out. Like, I've got to keep moving. And at first, I was afraid that when Haruichi confronts him that he was just going to be really like angsty and mad. But then he turns around and he's like, isn't being the ace really cool? Like he still has that fire. He still wants to be the ace so badly. And it's like that fire gets renewed, right? It's a flame. And it's, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. But you know what else is so good? Ochiai and Kateoka's conversation. He's a catcher. Of course he's a catcher. Why did I not guess that? I was wondering, I remember commenting like way back in the middle of season 2, I was like, what position did Ochiai play? And everybody in the Discord was like, you'll find out. I was like, but he's a catcher. It all makes sense. Like he has that analytical mind. He can read pitchers. Oh my God. Him and Koshu would probably get along great. Especially with their views of Sawamura, right? Ochiai being a catcher makes so much sense. And him saying that he was even envious of Kateoka back when they were playing. I was like, oh, so cool. But I like, a lot of people in Discord were like, how do you feel about Ochiai now in this season? And I'm like, well, to be honest, it doesn't excuse, I still don't like Ochiai from season 2. Like, up until the finals. Like, Ochiai throughout most of season 2 is highly frustrating because he doesn't, but then he slowly warms up to the team and to Kateoka, and it's like he kind of melts a little bit, and the ice around him melts, and then you kind of see, okay, Ochiai, you're not as bad as I thought. Okay, but I will give Ochiai credit. He does realize he did say that to Furuya, and he created a monster. He created 2 monsters. Some of you noted in the comments that he created 2 monsters with Sawamura and Furuya, right? Or he made those monsters bigger, right? But God. And he calls Kateoka out. He's like, this whole journal thing, this is why you let Furuya start, isn't it? I was like, Ochiai ain't dumb. He ain't no slack. All right. He's like, and Kateoka admits, he's like, I related to Furuya. He's like, after Koshin, when I competed, I had that fire like Furuya did, and I wanted to get better. And he's like, I know what Furuya's going through. And Ochiai's like, well, that's great, but you made a bad move. You shouldn't have done that. And Kateoka admits that he made a mistake. And so I like that as this is going on, this conversation between the two coaches, we see Furuya come in wanting to watch the tape. And again, because Sawamura is our sunshine boy and is a literal saint. No, but Sawamura, showing just how good of a character Sawamura is. When Furuya comes in, he's like, I want to watch the tape. Sawamura doesn't send him away. He's not mean to him. He teases him, but he's just like, fine, sit down, watch the tape. Ace, like, just, he's like, look at, this is reality. Like, just tells him how it is. But I love that they still, even when Sawamura is mad at Furuya, they still have this banter as rivals and as friends, right? And so I kind of love that about them. But Ochiai admits he was envious of Katioka, and he's like, look, we need a fresh start. It's probably, and I do agree with him. He's like, it's probably better we lost early on. So now we know the holes. We know what we need to do to win Nationals in the summer and to go up against Inashiro. We know what we need to do. So I like that. And I like that Katioka asks Ochiai to stay on, like, for them to balance each other out. I'm like, okay, cool. I like it. And then the end of this episode, all the animation budget went to making Miyuki look like the best thing in the world. The animation on Miyuki is freaking gorgeous. The lighting, everything. And my shipper heart, I'll admit, like, I'm a multi-shipper, so my Sawamura Miyuki ship just, like, exploded at the end of this episode. But then I also had another ship form that we'll talk about in a little bit. I had another ship form, and I was like, oh my, what is this? And I'm sure you all know where this is going, but we'll get to it when we get to episode 19. But Miyuki saying that he's like, Sawamura, he's like, I didn't expect him to rise up the ranks to possibly be the ace this soon. Meaning he's always known he could become the ace, but he just didn't think it would happen this soon. I'm like, yes. And God, next episode, I'm like, oh, so excited. And then just 3 more months. 3 more months with them. I can see why y'all are obsessed with the manga right now. I'm going to go ahead and say it, but I've been talking to people in the Discord about it. I think I'm not going to watch any more 4-episode chunks for this season. I think it's just going to be 3-episode chunks. And then when I get to the last 2 episodes 50 and 51, I'm going to watch those 2 together, the penultimate and the finale. And then I'm going to recap the manga, because my goal starting now, from now until the end of the season, is to start reading the manga and catch up. I'll be posting updates on Twitter and the Discord as I go if I see things that I like and I want to post about. But then after this season ends, I know y'all want me to move on to another sports anime, but I've got to catch up first. I've got to. I can't stop and not know what happens. So, because I know, I have a feeling this season's going to end and I'm going to be like, but the manga's still ongoing, so what? So I think after those 2 episodes in the manga recap, I am going to do volume by volume, catch up with Ace of the Diamond Act 2, where it is now in the manga. Do that. And then after that, start a new sports anime. And then from there, I'll just update on a volume by volume basis with Ace of the Diamond Act 2. Like, I know right now with Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, I'm updating, like, once 5 chapters have come out, I do an update. So once 5 chapters or 6 chapters or however many chapters are in a volume of Ace of the Diamond Act 2, I'll start doing updates with the manga on that point, because I could do chapter by chapter, but I like, just like watching these episodes in 3-episode chunks, I think I want to read the manga in chunks so that it's a whole, because usually mangaka, when they create volumes of manga, there's a purpose and there's like an arc and they structure it a certain way. So that's kind of what I want to do with this. But just to give you all a heads up, that's where my headspace is at this point. But yeah, so episode 18, I like Kuramochi talking about Miyuki secretly putting in more work. He's like, oh, you're putting in more work behind the scenes, aren't you? Like, you don't want the other players to know that you're really putting a lot more in than you let on, right? And Koshu notices. Koshu's like, oh, he doesn't have his glove and his hat, but he's probably off practicing regardless. And then Kuramochi saying that, I love that Kuramochi, he genuinely cares that Sawamura was upset. And he's like, I feel like we're responsible. Like, Sawamura was just telling us that, he was mad at us. And I'm like, no, he wasn't. But it's so crazy that Kuramochi thinks that. And he's like, it was a kick to the pants from Sawamura that we need to get it in gear. I was like, oh, I'm like, as long as that's what you take out of it, I guess. But man, they couldn't score. And so again, I think that that's such a telling thing of how when Sawamura gets serious, because Furuya is so quiet. So when Furuya's, serious, it's very intense, but it does not project the same energy that when Sawamura is serious it projects. Because Sawamura is always so sunshiny and happy that when he gets serious, shit gets real. And so I feel like that's what Kuromochi's saying. He's like, man, I felt like things just got real and we were getting scolded by, almost feeling like getting scolded by the ace, even though Sawamura is not the ace, one of those situations. So that was really interesting. And then, of course, Sawamura and Furuya both trying to take blame for the loss and both being, critical of each other to the point where Nabe's like, knock it off. We lost. It's in the past. Let's just move on. Right? But then we have Kachioka saying that numbers are discarded. The roster for the summer tournament is going to be determined over the next few months with how everybody plays. And they'll have a first string of 20 and a second string of 20. And we're just going to go from there. I'm like, whoa. So Sawamura could become the ace. He could become the ace. He could be. I really want him to be. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Sawamura and Furuya handle this and how they handle their pitching and their mentality over the next couple of months. Like how this tournament is going to affect them is going to be interesting. We're already seeing how it's affecting Sawamura. Like Sawamura is like kicking it into gear, being like, no, I need to become a better batter. I need to do the basics. We're going to go through this, but we're going to go through it now because that's the next part of my notes, is when Nabe confronts Miyuki about it. He's like, hey, Sawamura wants to talk to you tonight, like asking you some questions, right? And Miyuki's like, yeah, I don't know what's up. It's like, but the thing is, Nabe, and for Nabe to praise Sawamura is a pretty big deal because like back in season 2, Nabe gave Nori a very hard time. Nabe was like giving Nori like, you're not good enough, you need to get better. Like for our sniper, when he gives you a compliment, like you take it and run, because it does not always happen. And so he tells Sawamura, he's like, you were on fire today, you did really good. And Sawamura's like, no. He's like, I wasn't thinking, I just pitched to wherever Miyuki held the glove. And that's not good enough for Sawamura. He's like, no. He's like, I want to know why Miyuki's making these calls. I want Miyuki to acknowledge me and to know that I am thinking. I'm not just a mindless player, that I have, I am thinking and putting in the work. And it just made me choke up with emotion. Like I'm getting choked up now. I'm like, oh, and I'm like, Sawamura, you don't understand. Miyuki does acknowledge you. But he's like, I want it to be genuine and to come from him. It's like my heart like just exploded. I was like, ugh, like it's so good. And when Miyuki says, he's like, we can't be beaten. And you can take it two ways. It's like, we can't be beaten as long as we have that boundless enthusiasm from Sawamura. And it's also, we can't be beaten by Sawamura. And that's when he kind of confirms the latter. He's like, we can't let Sawamura outshine us. That we can't let him be better than us, right? We got to get up onto his level. And I'm like, and Furuya just being stunned. Furuya's like, what? This is his mindset? What? Like, I love that Furuya got to hear that. That's so good. That Sawamura's passion and his fire and wanting to work towards the future. It's like, I love it. And so then Miyuki's like, we need to work to exceed expectations. And that's what Sawamura is trying to do. He's trying to work to exceed Miyuki's expectations. But then he wants him to come ask questions. And they do a weird hard cut. I feel like it might have been the end of a chapter. Like they ended a chapter in the manga with Sawamura being like, I need to come to your dorm room and ask you questions. And then they cut and went to something else. Because we tie back to it later. But at first I was like, Sawamura coming to Miyuki's room to ask questions alone at 8 o'clock at night? Is this where the fan fiction comes from? But no, it ends up being like the whole squad's there, like all the catchers and pitchers. Yui's not there, which is interesting. Yui's not there, but Koshu's there, Ono's there, which is funny. Maybe Yui was there and I just didn't see him. Maybe Yui was in the room and we just didn't pan on him, but Nori and Furuya and Sawamura are there, so it's all the pitchers and all the catchers together for me. Miyuki's like, don't leave me alone with him. There's no telling what we might do. Right. So, yeah. Hirano. So we cut back to the game where Miyuki and Nabe and Furuya went to go watch. And it's like the most anticlimactic final ever. I'm like, Terashima just subverting expectations. I expected this amazing giant game where it was like Mei and Kosei pitching to the death. No. Mei doesn't pitch till the 7th inning. Hirano pitches, and Kosei doesn't pitch at all. He like slept on his neck wrong and wasn't feeling good. And they still put up a fight. It was 4-2 with the hitters duel. And it became like, and I guess that's good that Miyuki saw that, because it's good that they saw that, because it's proving that without their ace pitchers, without the aces, this is how strong both of these teams are. They don't need their aces to still give a really crazy game. Like, their offense is just as strong. So I feel like that's a wake-up call to Miyuki and them being like, well, crud, we need to amp up our game if we're going to compete against this. Like, what? Like, they're like, if we're going to compete against this, we've got to up our ante and try to, like, get to where we can bat to compete against them. It's like, yeah, Inashiro, even without Mei, is a crazy tough team, and Ichidai third is no slouch either. And I like that, we get that whole thing with them winning and the game's over. And there's that shot of Miyuki looking down at Mei. X's. Such X's. God, you cannot tell me, Terajima, there was nothing between them. No, but Miyuki wants to face Mei so badly. He wants to face them so badly and, like, beat them. Because they are the undisputed champions of, like, these tournaments now. They haven't won nationals, but they have been undisputed as far as, like, their regional tournament goes. And you can just tell Miyuki wants to face Mei so bad. Because it's like that rivalry. It's just carried on all these years. It's like, But yeah, we go back to the questions. Questions Saomura wants to ask him. And we get the whole thing about the pitching sequence versus game calls. And the difference between them. The pitching sequence is more like the repertoire of pitches that can be used, and the game calls are like in-person strategy. And I like that during this entire conversation, Koshu is in the back listening. Koshu is like soaking in all the knowledge from Miyuki that he can get. Because after this year, when Miyuki's gone and Ono is gone, I mean, there's Hariba, or I always forget his name. There's him, that's Saomura's year, but he's never really shown himself as a strong catcher. So it's really like Yui and Koshu's like, I feel like Koshu is going to try to soak in as much from Miyuki as he can so that he can, like, go on and become a really good catcher as a second year, right? But I like that they talk about that the game calls are really, really hard. But Miyuki's like, no, if you just know what to do and you know, and your pitcher does what you tell him to and you guys can communicate, then yeah, no, it's a good game. You can make it work, right? And the idea of the pitchers and catchers working together. And then Chris, getting that thing with Chris Senpai. So Saomura he's taking everything that he's learning from Miyuki in this moment, but also applying it to Chris Senpai's wisdom. And Chris Senpai saying that pitchers have to know the most. They have to know about the basics. They have to know it like the back of their hand. They have to know all about baseball that they can in order to be the best that they can. And Saomura's like, I've got to get better. He's like, I've got to take Chris's words to heart. He's like, I've got to learn everything I can about baseball and apply that strategy to myself as a hitter, as a pitcher, if I'm going to become the ace. And I'm like, and we don't see what Furuya takes away from this. This set of episodes is all about what Saomura is taking from the experience and what Saomura is taking from this loss and how he's moving forward. Like, this set of episodes was all focusing on what Saomura is doing, and he's our main character. It should. But we don't really see what Furuya is taking from it, except during the game he says that he wants to become the best pitcher in Japan still, but he knows he's got to make it to where his team will acknowledge him again. And it's like, okay, all right. I like that Saomura says, though, he's like, I need the knowledge that I gained from Chris. I need the knowledge of baseball to seep deeper. I need it to become ingrained into me. I need to be a baseball freak if I'm going to be as strong as I can. It's like, But yeah, we go back to the game. Mei comes in the 7th inning. Kosei never pitches. Furuya makes the note that he wants his teammates to acknowledge him, and he still wants to be the best pitcher in Japan. It's like, okay. And then Koshu. I like that. we cut to this like practice thing with Sawamura and Koshu. So while this whole thing with Furuya is going on, and Miyuki seems like he's like, okay, Furuya, you seem like you're in a good place. Good. Like he's acknowledging Furuya being in a good place. We cut back to the practice game where Koshu and Sawamura have this conversation. It's great. But Koshu, I like that Koshu is basically saying, he's like, I like when you're like this, Sawamura, when you have that like ace-like look to you. But he tells Sawamura, he's like, you're too loud. I love that. Sawamura's like, what? He's like, you're too loud. He's like, you fire up your opponents and you make them think that you're mocking them, which is how Koshu originally thought Sawamura was. And it cuts back to how Koshu handled his coach. We'll talk about the coach. But he's like, you're too loud. You fire up your opponents and you make it hard to read. And Sawamura's like, that's kind of just me. Like, you know? And it's funny because Sawamura's like, I don't know if you're dissing me or complimenting me. Maybe both. And Koshu's like, it's both. But we find out about Koshu's coach. And about how he was so sunny to them to the point. But the thing about it is that even in the flashback, like, Koshu's coach always seemed kind of fake. And then that fakeness gets proven when he switches teams. And it just feels like such a betrayal to them, like they were abandoned, that it was a betrayal to him and his teammates. And so then it talks about how they beat his team that he switched to, like, by a lot. And he's like, where was this fire when I was coaching? And Koshu's like, don't insult us. And the idea, Koshu says he's always hated the phrase that you enjoy baseball. And it reminded me a lot of Hongo. It reminded me of kind of Hongo's mentality, that Hongo's like, people that enjoy baseball, no, we're here to live it and breathe it and sell our soul to it. But Koshu's not like that. At first you think he's going the Hongo route where he's like, baseball's not to be enjoyed. But he says no, he's like, I've always hated the phrase that enjoying baseball. But he's like, I want to know if it's possible to enjoy baseball. And I think, it's just a hint, I think that catching for Sawamura and Asada is going to show Koshu that yes, you can enjoy baseball. And I think that's going to be Koshu's lesson that he learns in this season. I could be wrong, right? But that line, the line that he says at the end of that flashback, when we go through like the coach betrayal and everything, he says, we are not tools to entertain adults. Oh, that line is so good because it's like, yeah, he's like, we're not here just for your entertainment. This is something that's important to us. And it's something that some of us want to build a future out of. We're not just tools for you. And that kind of goes back to Ochiai. I said, 5 minutes ago that Ochiai would probably get along with Koshu. I think the current Ochiai would. I think Ochiai from season 2, I don't know how Koshu would feel about him because that kind of ties into the whole treating players like chess pieces versus treating them like players with a heart and a soul. And I think that's what Koshu is getting at. But I like that line where he says, I want to know how far will my strength take me. It's not that Koshu wants to get stronger. It's not like Furuya where he's like, I have to get stronger. But it's kind of seems more related to Sawamura where he's like, okay, I have strength. I want to see how far it'll take me. It's like, But yeah, I really liked Koshu in these episodes, especially 18 and episode 19. So we have the Intra Squad. None of the first string players are allowed to play. So that makes sense why Masashi and Yui are not present. Why Sawamura, none of them can play. It's literally the first years versus the non-string second and third years. Or the second string. It's like, okay. And Yohei! Yohei is our pitcher. Yohei Kuki. I don't know. I think I like Yohei, even though I like Asada calling him Kuki-kun. Like, that's really cute. But I like Yohei better. I might just call him Yohei. But he's a pitcher. I'm glad y'all didn't spoil that. That was great. So he's a pitcher too. Okay. So I was wondering, like, is Asada the only first-year pitcher? Because not that I don't love Asada, but we kind of need, for the relay purposes, maybe a few more. But Yohei is too. And I really, really love when Sawamura is hiding behind the thing and he wants to cheer Asada on. But he's like, at first he's running. And as he's running, he's like, I want to go cheer Asada on, but I need to practice. And he's like, I just want to go see, right? And while that's going on, we see that Haruichi is doing like the batting drills. And Toji and Kanemaru, they want to practice. But then we find out, at first I was a little confused why they skipped practice. I'm like, why did they skip practice to go watch the game? They seemed conflicted about it. They wanted to go see Yohei play because he went to middle school with them. I was like, okay.
But yeah, so we have on here that Yohei, I keep calling him Kohei on here, but Yohei overthinks a little bit. He overthinks. He's not quite on the up and up just yet. He's still struggling a little bit. But I love that Ochiai points out that he has a lot of mental fortitude. Like, he's calm under pressure. He doesn't let anything get to him, which is huge because you can develop your pitching. You can practice pitching. You can practice your battery skills. Like, all that stuff you can work with. But the mental aspect of it is often the hardest thing, I think. I think having that mental fortitude to be able to keep that constitution and that calmness when you're stressed, that's huge. And you can't really train that. You either just have it or you don't. I mean, you can practice and techniques that will help improve it, but oftentimes it's like base instinct. And the fact that Yohei is so calm is awesome. It's like, okay, cool. But we get some of the other players shining in this. We have Harumi. I'm liking Harumi more and more. Like, he's our handsome blue-eyed character. And I like that he says, I've been waiting in the shadows and rising up. I'm like, that's great. And Ochiai notices that Harumi has bulked up. He's gotten more fit. He's gotten some more muscle on him. He's not as scrawny as he was. I am ready for Asada to grow. He's so scrawny, and they make a comment. They're like, he's such a scrawny, but he's a tall southpaw. And I'm just ready that by the time they get third year, like Asada, because if we've talked about this in the Discord, Sawamura has really bulked up over the last year. Like, he started out really scrawny too, and he's like gotten a lot more muscle over this year. So I'm just waiting for second year Asada to be like, have like the musculature definition to him that he's lacking this season and his first year. But Koshu helping Asada, agreeing that he's going to help him. I'm like, that's really sweet. Mogami, our Rock Lee lookalike, Mogami, with all the errors as a shortstop. He's got a long way to go. And I love that he just like repeats things. He's like a little badger repeating things. But he's got a ways to go. I like that we're establishing how these first years are now. And I'm assuming that as the series goes on, manga and otherwise, that we'll see how they change over time. That's going to be really cool. But yeah, I like that they're comparing Yohei a lot to Sawamura. And we find out he played with Kanemaru and Toji in middle school. I like it. And I like that as he's pitching, Yui is like, I want to catch for him. It's like, yeah! So I'm just waiting for, like, maybe in the future, Koshu and Asada forming a battery and Yui and Yohei forming a battery. That would be really cool. I would really like that a lot. But yeah, Kawashima is the third-year pitcher for the other team. And I like that we established throughout this that all of the players, Nabe included, that aren't in the intra-squad game, they're all trying to find little ways to help out the team and show their support, even if they can't play. Like, Nabe's like, I'll have the scorebook, I'll keep notes and everything, and Katioka's like, good, thank you. And so then, I have on my paper, like, lots of little hearts towards the bottom. I'm a multi-shipper, y'all. I'm a multi-shipper, and I told y'all that Miyuki and Sawamura, they're almost like an OTP to me. But then I could see Koshu and Sawamura maybe being a ship. So if you ship Koshu and Sawamura, I get it. But you know who I may have started shipping after this? Asada and Koshu. Is that a thing? Is that a thing? I feel like it should be a thing. Because when Koshu was like, let's show them how the guys in the cafeteria play, I was like, it's over. I'm in. I'm all in. Take my money, Terajima. Give me all the Koshu Asada moments. Because it's so perfect. You have Wolf Boy, who is so serious and stern and like a hard ass, like edgelord. And then you have precious cinnamon bun, innocent small bean Asada. And again, Koshu's like, I don't like how loud you are, Sawamura. Asada's so quiet that it's great. And Asada, I could see if Asada gets that confidence, he could be hard to read, right? But Koshu has a type. He's got a type. He likes them southpaws. But Asada is also really tall. Like, noticing this game in episode 19, I was like, wow, Asada is really tall. I said it in the reaction, but Asada gives me like Tamba vibes. Because when we saw Tamba his first year, he was kind of like meek and quiet and like, oh, okay, I'll do my best. And then by the time he was a third year, he was the ace and he was like confident and like a leader. And I see Asada, I said that Asada would be kind of more like Sawamura. No, Yohei is kind of more like Sawamura, but I see Asada
more like Tamba, and that he's going to grow over time and become a leader in the Ace like him. I'm like, that would be so good. But it's like they're both first years, Yohei and Asada. So maybe Yohei will become the Ace. Maybe it'll be Asada. But I see those similarities. But Koshu being so kind and considerate and nice to Asada. Like, he gives Saomura hell. He's like Miyuki. He gives him hell. He's like, grumble, grumble, grumble. But to Asada, it's like, he just like gently holds Asada and he's like, it's all right, friend, I'll help you fly. And it's like, no. I mean, if y'all ship Koshu with Saomura, I'm here for you. I do too. I ship Saomura with Miyuki and Koshu probably primarily. But Asada and Koshu, it's the crack ship of the ages. Like this small innocent being and his wolf boy. And I just love how Saomura's like peeking over to the side. And he's like, I wonder if Asada's okay. Is Koshu making fun of him? Is he making him feel bad? Like, that was so sweet and innocent. Saomura just wants to watch over his Kohei so much, and he just wants to make sure they're safe. And I like that Kuromochi kicks him. He's like, just go watch the game. Like, go on, Saomura. I love it. I also noticed that Koshu and Seido's relationship is a lot like Kuromochi and Miyuki. Kuromochi and Miyuki have this like friendship and dynamic that I feel is like Seido and Koshu. Like, they have a very similar dynamic as well. I'm like, freaking precious. Because Koshu like calming down Asada, Koshu like giving him the calming words, and them establishing that Koshu is really good at motivating pitchers. He's really good at reaching them and talking them through things. He's kind of, Miyuki struggles with communication. He's gotten a lot better. But Miyuki's thing was always communication at the start of the series. Like, he wasn't the best communicator with the pitchers. He knew how to appease them, but overall communication, it was still a little bit lacking. Koshu's like a natural communicator to the pitchers. It's great. I like that discussion he has with Saomura, where he tells Saomura, he's like, I'm not worthy to pitch to you yet. He's like, I'm not worthy to pitch to you yet. I want to get up to that level. And Saomura's like, all right, when you are, let's do it. And it's like, But yeah, I like that both Asada and Yohei have proven that they can keep calm under pressure. And especially against these second and third years. I think that's important moving forward to actual games they will play. Because I was worried that Asada would like make a bunch of mistakes or like trip and fall like Saomura did. No, he's good. He's got a lot to work on, but he'll be fine. Like this, seeing him pitch. And so I can't wait. I am a little bit sad that this cut off before episode 20. I was like, I want to see Asada pitch more, and I want to see Koshu work with him. But that just has me excited for next week and the battery that's going to be explored through them in the next episode, at least. But, these episodes were so good. So good. And now I'm so excited to see how Saomura moves forward. I'm excited to see how Furuya moves forward. I'm excited to see Asada and Koshu moving forward. Like, all these players, everybody's getting motivated. They're getting hyped. The summer tournament's about to start. We're trying to figure out who's going to be on the roster. Like, I get so excited. So good. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below, but these episodes were fantastic. I shouldn't be surprised, but here we are. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episodes 20, 21, and 22 of Act 2 of Ace of the Diamond. Bye.